I know who has the pledge and the invocation.
Start guessing.
I'm gonna have to. Dale Farlow, Dale, would you lead us in a pledge and invocation today?
Thank you, God, for all your many blessings. You bless each of us and our club in so many ways that at times our cup runs over. We ask that you just help us be mindful to share these blessings with us. And we go through this day and through this week that we are a mirror of your love and your grace and your peace and joy. And let's share these with us. Bless us this day and help us do your will. In Christ's name we pray. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
the things that they do.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
This is Mike. And Mike Ballard, are you in the room or are you still out checking people?
I'm here.
There we are.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
38 guests, 38 members this morning. We have one guest from Summit Club, Claudia, Kennedy, our district.
Yeah, I'd love to introduce Jessica Kettner. She's new in town, but I'll let her tell you a little bit more about herself.
Hi, I'm Jessica. My husband and I moved here from Manhattan last January, so I've been here a year. I spent 6 years with Fox News Channel there, and now I'm here at Honda Aircraft doing their public relations.
Wow.
I'm happy to be a guest here.
We're so glad.
Jessica, it's nice to have you with us.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Rick Martin, did you slip in and hide out in the back row? Okay. Don't see Rick Martin. We will not do birthdays and anniversaries today. We'll catch up next week. How about some announcements? Christy, can I ask you to announce the Out of the Garden meal packing?
So as I know and as I hopefully am clear, it is going to be on March 2nd on Saturday from 1 to 3. And I believe Kim is going to send out a link for signups and more information about it. But it is a pretty miraculous sight to see if you've never come to the warehouse and participated in it. I'm not quite sure the number of thousands of meals that are packed, but it is it 90 to 100,000 meals?
Well, they said I think it was 80 to 90,000.
80 to 90,000, and you know, it's the tables are set up, the bags are packed, the boxes are packed, and all of that food ends up coming out of the Garden Project. So we are super grateful for that. Yeah.
Chrissy, it's 1 to 3.
It's from 1 to 3 p.m. So it's the afternoon session. I believe there's a morning session.
That's the youth.
That's the
I
youth.
believe so.
Yeah,
yes.
the youth are from 9 to 11.
Kids.
All right.
For interactive and kids, it's the morning session.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Are we doing
I believe Kim is going to send out a link.
I'll send out a link.
There's already been a fantastic turnout. There's room for only 100 people in the morning and 100 people in the afternoon. Both sessions are probably a third full already, if not more. It is an incredible event. Raise your hand if you've done this before. It's amazing to do the meal packing. Great event.
Henry Ford would be impressed.
Good morning, everybody.
It's cool.
I brought my little advertiser with me.
Yes.
You don't want to say it anymore?
Intern.
Is there something you want to tell them? Yes. Trash pickup this Saturday, 8:30 World Beers. I'll send out another link to the Sign Up Genius. And yeah, we look forward to having everybody out there. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Chip Person, can I ask you to make an announcement for Enduring Gratitude?
Yes, I presented to the President's Club or President's meeting last week, and Enduring Gratitude is a skeet shoot and live pheasant toss on February 9th, honoring veterans of our various military services. And we started in 2008 with 19 veterans. We had a hard time getting that many. Last few years we've been well over 120 to 150 veterans. We have decided in 2011 that we won't just focus on wounded veterans. We had some distinguished veterans from our area ask if they could come, and somebody turned Porter Halliburton down, who spent 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton with a recently deceased senator. And Porter never really got the name for it, but if you knew who he was, we wouldn't have turned him down. And when we found out we turned him down, we called him up and made him honorary chairman and keynote speaker. But anyway, we opened the thing up to all veterans. And so if you've served, you could come, and we would like to spend a day honoring you. It starts out with breakfast in the morning. It's continental breakfast. There'll be a safety talk, speaker. Then we break up into groups. We have another safety talk, and then we take people around. And they never know they're being watched very carefully for their ability to handle a shotgun. They don't carry any shells in their pockets. They're not allowed to do anything that's unsafe. They're actually boxes. When you turn, you can't point the gun anywhere behind you or whatnot. All the shotgun shells are well controlled until they get out in the pheasant field. We don't put anybody out in the pheasant field because that's laissez-faire. There are birds flying. You have to know what you're doing. But we need volunteers. It takes 150 volunteers to honor 150 vets because we have to have a safety officer and a team captain with each group. We've got to have people that clean birds. We need kitchen help. We need organizational help. We actually have goodie bags that we'll pack. We need help with that beforehand. And our budget's about $60,000, and there's 6 guys raising that. And we've not missed it yet after 10 years. But I'd like to invite everybody to take a look at the website. I'll send it out again. You will not have a better feeling in your life than to show up and help one of these veterans through a day. When they say thank you, you got to realize that a lot of these people lost an arm or a leg. They may have a brain injury, arm injury. They may have injuries you can't see, psychological injuries. We have people on staff, not on staff, but volunteers to handle all that for whatever comes up. But realize that these folks, when they came home from Afghanistan, when they came home from Iraq, they didn't get a ticker tape parade. Our government doesn't do diddly squat. They have a transitional warrior thing, and the whole deal is to, down at Fort Bragg, to try and, as soon as they can walk and talk, boom, you're gone. They never hear from the government again unless it's through the VA, and we all know about how the VA operates. So to have a group of citizens come together, 150 of us, to thank 150 of them and give them a great day. It would cost them $750 to $1,000 a day to do this if they did it on a retail basis on their own. And so come out and join us. It's fun. You can do everything from direct traffic to cook to clean up to become a safety captain, to be a group leader, whatever you want, or if you can drive a 4-wheeler. We got to haul people around. So come out, take a look at the website. Please join us. It will be probably the most rewarding day you've spent in a long, long time. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you. I'd like to call up Mike Conrad and Mike Conrad.
Already? Are we going to do happy dollars first, or are you going to do that?
Well, we could do that.
Okay, we can.
No, Mike.
You want me to talk some more, Mike?
Come on up, this is a great one.
We're trying to get organized.
Just walked you right into the announcements.
Well, just let me give a little prelude, but, you know, today we're going to award some Paul Harris Fellow and some Plus Paul Harris Fellows as well, and another special Bequest Society member. And this club has been extremely supportive of our Rotary Foundation over the years. As you know, we're a Triple Crown club in that every member in this club is a Paul Harris Fellow. And as a new member, we ask you to become a Paul Harris Fellow. We're all sustainers in that we all give $100 every year to our Rotary Foundation. And we're all benefactors. And that means that we have set aside $1,000 in our estate plan. And once we're gone from this good earth, that will go to our Rotary Foundation. So I want to thank you all for your great support of our Rotary Foundation. So I'm going to turn it over to Claudia because she's got a very special presentation for a new Paul Harris Fellow in our club.
Thank you. Now, when Paul Harris and 3 of his business associates got together and formed Rotary International in 1905, At first, it was for the purpose of just getting together, making friends, and sharing business opportunities. But over the years, as we all know, we have grown into an organization that does good in the world and does good work both at home and abroad. And the manifestation and the significance of that is that we give our time, our talent, and our treasure to the Rotary Foundation so that our resources are put to work to help everyone around the world. And so the Paul Harris Fellow Award is to honor someone who has demonstrated the contribution that we make to the Rotary Foundation. And in this case, the Paul Harris Fellow Award sometimes is given by one individual in honor of another. And so I am happy to award my husband, Frank Cheney, please come up, with the Paul Harris Fellow. I am happy to make this honor, or to give this up to you in your honor. And if I can get this up, here is a Paul Harris Fellow pin. You want me to put this on you? Okay. And you will receive a certificate, because a Paul Harris Fellow is really the symbolism and the expression of what we stand for in Rotary. And I will pin this here.
It's a genuine honor to be part of this. I know I've seen a few of these in my life. It's a genuine honor to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you, and we're glad that you joined Rotary. Not that there was any pressure. But here you go. Congratulations. Thank you for being part of this. Yeah, you can sit down, but I'm staying.
We got your money, thank you.
Okay. And now I wanted to recognize some folks who have exceeded the $1,000 level, and for every $1,000, you're at +1, +2, +3 until you get to $10,000 and you become a major donor. And if you look on this banner, we have 14 of our members who are Paul Harris Society members, meaning that they give $1,000 every year to our Rotary Foundation. And that's a huge percentage when you look at other clubs in our district. So I'm so proud of those folks who have made that commitment to give $1,000 a year. So as you can see, we're going to have a lot of pluses because we have so many Paul Harris Society members that are going to get to become major donors very, very soon. So I'm going to start with our first person is Lisa Simpson. She is a +1, meaning that she has given $2,000 to our Rotary Foundation.
Okay. Come on up.
Come on up, Lisa. And a +2, meaning he's given $3,000, is our Prez, Chip Bell.
There you go, +2. Congratulations.
And a +6 is one of our charter members, Buster Lewis.
Well.
No wonder I feel so
Come on up, Buster. And another +6 is our very own Dan Quinn.
All right.
And a +8, meaning that he's given $9,000, is our very own Tom Richardson.
Hey, Tom.
Tommy.
And then the last thing I want to do, as you know, we have been involved for the last 15 months in a goal to raise $1 million for our Rotary Foundation. And it all culminates on February 12th over at Grandover, and we've been working with Kelly Harrell, and it's going to be a spectacular event where RI President Barry Rassin and Esther, his wife, will be in attendance. They'll be our keynote speaker. So to qualify for that, a person had to either be a major donor, giving $10,000, or pledging over 3 years to give $10,000 to our Rotary Foundation, or they could become a bequest society member, meaning that they have left $10,000 in their estate plan for the Rotary Foundation, or they could add $10,000 to an existing bequest. And so today I want to ask Justin Plummer to come forward. He is going to be a new bequest society member, and so we're so happy that you're joining the ranks. All right, that's it. Thank you so much. Thanks for your great support of our Rotary Foundation.
Claudia and Mike, thank you for those presentations, and that's just evidence of a very active and a very vibrant club. I appreciate what all you guys do. And on the terms of our service projects coming up again, be on the lookout for the email about the Out of the Garden food packing event on March 2nd. That's going to be a great activity, and the highway cleanup that Matthew talked about. Okay. You know what? Do we have time for a quick round of the feud?
Let's
play
the feud!
Well.
Play the feud.
Danny's not here.
Yeah, I know. I was looking around. I don't see Danny. So I'm going to go to the next best thing. It's the Smith family. Yeah, it's the Smith family. Who are we playing, Jonathan? Let's go with...
The house.
Yeah, he's looking down. It's the Nosick family. All right, this is an easy one.
First we get down with pass or play.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm hosting this show. You need to sit tight. I got this. All right, so
Let's hope I've got it.
I'm going to ask Jonathan, do you want to pass or play?
I want to play.
They're going to play. The Smith family's going to play. All right, so it is just after New Year's. So we got top 6 answers on the board. Name a popular New Year's resolution. Top 6 answers on the board.
Well, this being the 17th, they're already broken, but lose weight.
Okay, all right. Let's lose some weight. Ding, 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 ding. Number 1 answer. Number 1 answer. All right, Mr. Quill, what was your New Year's resolution, bud?
Go to the gym.
All right, I'm going to give you that one. Number 3. Ding, 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 ding. Number 3. Exercise. All right, we got 4 more answers on the board. What do you think?
Become more organized.
You got a problem with that area? Should have gone with your instinct. Get more organized. All right, you got 1 strike. You got 1 strike. I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say pick up trash, right? Pick up trash. All right, what we got?
I'm going to use Matthew's. Not drink as much.
Okay. Just to be clear, it's drink less or quit drinking.
Whatever the right answer.
All right. He wants to quit drinking. Ding, 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 ding. Respond answer. All right. So we got 3 answers left on the board. 1 strike.
I was going to go Matthew's route and say floss, but I'm going to say quit smoking instead.
All right, we're going to stop smoking up. Ding, 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 ding. That was your number 2 answer. So we got 2 answers left on the board. 1 strike. All right, Mr. Neal, what you got?
Spend more time with family?
Spend more time with family. All right, he wants to spend more time with family.
Sorry,
Down to the wire.
Bostic family, get ready. You got 2 answers left on the board, 2 strikes.
How about a new job?
New car.
Quit your job.
New job, new career.
All right, you're gonna start a new career. All right, Bostic family, you got a chance to steal. Huddle up, what you guys got? Get one. Get one answer.
Save more money.
All right, Mr. Nosson wants to save some money.
Good one.
That could be one.
Whoa.
All right.
How about to stop whining on there?
Number 4 answer was do better in school. Do better in school. You guys wouldn't know anything about that. And number 6 was be a better person.
Be a better person.
Just be a better person.
Join Rotary, right?
All right, I'm out here. Happy dollars coming, Dane.
With happy dollars.
All right. I'm gonna try to be a better person and do happy dollars. I have the convenience of saying happy birthday to all my grandkids the same week. Franklin turned 4 on Monday. Elma and Henry both turned 1 on Friday. So.
All right. Wow.
Two more grandchildren if you will.
Anybody want to wish a happy birthday? God.
So, all I had was 20, so I'm gonna talk for a while.
Yeah, we got
Wow. Those dentists, I'll tell you.
So the first one is I won that 20 off of my New Orleans Saints beating the Dirty Bird Eagles. So that's number 1.
All
Second
right.
one is for Tom Phoenix. Tom also saved me a good bit of money. He went to bat for me with the city, which if any of y'all have done that, run up against some inspectors, it's not an easy fight. So he saved, Tom, you probably saved me $20,000. So that 20 is $1,000 a piece for me.
Pappy always told me that you know the difference between God and a city inspector. God doesn't think he's a city inspector.
Oh, that's a good one. Glad I got that on tape.
Happy dollars. One is that many of you, whether you realize it or not, I moved here it's almost 2 years in May, and my husband has not been here with me, but he is now here for at least 3 months, so that we were very excited that we're together, so that's very nice. And it was my birthday on Monday, so it is my birthday week, so.
All right.
Party everybody.
All right. Oh yeah, I want to thank the club for a few minutes for the announcement for Enduring Gratitude. Again, come on out for that. But Wilder sent us a speech last night. He got invited to talk to the NC State University Scholarship Committee. And he and one other student were going to talk about what they did with their scholarships while they were there. And, you know, we have a lot of jokes. He's in forestry and natural resource management. But he sent me a piece of his speech, and I was reading it here while Claudia was making her presentation. Sorry, but I had to respond to him before he had to give the speech, so I had to read it sometime. And I tried in the truck, and I damn near killed somebody. Anyway, so a lot of people worry about him in forestry and the chainsaws and the hard hats and all that. Let me explain a little bit about this. This 2 paragraphs really quick. When I first arrived in Concepcion, Chile, to work with the Forest Productivity Cooperative, it was not easy, as all of my coworkers only spoke Spanish and absolutely no English. Now, he has a minor in Spanish. That first day on the job, I was told we're going to be installing a system that would read the sap flow density of various eucalyptus genotypes and tell us which genotypes use the least amount of groundwater. That seemed hard enough in English, much less in Spanish. And they asked me to translate all of the manuals for the equipment.
Claudia. If you all don't know by now, April 26, 27, and 28 is our district conference in Greenville, South Carolina. Yeah, that Greenville. We are going to have a good time. It's a rock and roll theme. We're going to encourage y'all to dress up as rock stars Friday night for the reception. We're going to have great speakers. The Hyatt is downtown Greenville, and it is accessible to everything. There are 100 restaurants within walking distance. We have a good lineup of speakers and activities, and hope that you will all register, because registration is online right now. Go to DACDB calendar, scroll down to April, register right now for district conference.
All right, you heard it.
I've got two things. One's a little late, but my son finally graduated from college. in computer science and business. And he graduated summa cum laude. And I want to thank Mike Andrus that my little noodles, the chin, her eyes are cleared up after 1 week on drops. So she's great. So we're going to have to do this the rest of the day. She's getting used to it. Okay.
Mr. Smith. Well, I didn't think of forestry until Chip said something about it, but my father would have loved to have known young Wilder. He spent 40 years in the forest and in the classroom and got his doctorate of forestry when I was about 21 years old. I think one of the most important things he ever taught me about being out in the forest was, when I had a chainsaw when I was real young. He said, had a sticker on that Homelite XL12, it said, "Turn engine off before sharpening saw." I've looked for that sticker for 50 years and I haven't found it. It's good advice.
We might have a few made up.
Well, you don't believe how many people go out in the woods and just sharpen that saw while it's idling. You know.
Buster, I think that was as good as something Becky Lewis would have done. Okay, Kim, can I ask you to come up and present? We try so often to get members to come up and do a member presentation, and I'm pleased to have Kim Dane this morning to do a member presentation and just share a little bit about her story.
Great. I don't know if I need this or not. Well, it's a pleasure to be here to, I guess, share a little bit about my life story with you. I think what you learned today is that my family, whether it have been my parents or my grandparents or the role models they surrounded us three girls with, were quite inspirational in our lives. My father was a Rotarian as well as my grandfather. My grandfather was a Paul Harris Fellow, and when he passed, I was the only grandchild that was a Rotarian, so I received his Paul Harris Fellow from my grandmother at the dinner following. It was a family dinner. It was very memorable. We all got a little piece of something from our grandfather. But it was more like a medal that you wore back in the day. Like this, his Paul Harris must be, it's probably 65, 70 years old. So I have that and I honor that to this day. I was born in Streeter, Illinois. It's a small farm community. My grandparents, my mom's parents both worked in a factory. They were a high lift driver, and my grandmother packed bottles off the factory line. We had a great time with that set of grandparents. My grandfather was in charge of 3 cemeteries when he wasn't working in the factory, and he had a large garden that we all worked in. But probably my sister Candy, you have to realize my name was Kim Kane, and I had a sister Candy Kane. Okay, and so I did luck out, but I would have survived with Candy Cane. She survived quite well. But my grandfather that dug the graves, we used to go out in the summers, and he used to put blocks on the rider tractor as soon as we were able to drive that, and we used to mow the cemeteries. There were always 2 grandchildren on rider tractors, and then there were ones that trimmed the graves, and then, Grandpa took us all to church. We all went to church with him on Sundays, all the grandchildren. It was a ritual, and your parents would sit in one pew, and you sat with your grandfather in the grandparents' pew. And So I think, that all of those things really help mold you when you're a child, when you have all of that around you. But the other thing that Grandpa taught us is he dug the graves. They dug the graves by hand, and there were 3 Catholic cemeteries where he lived. And so you were always digging a grave. And so we always had a ritual where 3 of us went with Grandpa, whether it was my dad and myself and a cousin. And what you did is you sat on the other side of the cemetery, and when the funeral service was over, we lowered them into the ground, and we said our prayer. And I think he kind of shared a lot of things about, the acceptance of life and how you go through life. But, my grandfather was really funny because, you guys may think this is funny, we did, is that in the dead of winter, one of those families would call up Grandpa and say, you gotta go out and you gotta dig up my wife, because we left her 5-carat ring on her finger. And then they finally realized that, well, it's the dead of winter, and back then in the day, now you're talking, I'll age myself, but I was very young, it was the early 60s, there were no grave digging machines. You went out with a pick and an axe and you dug them up, and you got the jewelry back out. So my grandfather, before we lowered him in, had this little black book. And he'd open it up and he'd look and he'd check for jewelry, and then he'd make notes, what cemetery we're in, what the name was, where the plot was. And so then he'd know whether we needed to dig somebody up or not. So, I had a really eclectic youth with that set of grandparents. And I think we just did. We had a great time. And then the other set of grandparents, that grandpa was a banker. He was a president of a big chain of banks. And so, heck, we went into the bank all the time. We were in and out of the vault, you name it. We were right into that bank. And then they had the country club membership. And so we got to do that type of thing and learn how to play golf. We moved from Streeter, where we were born. In 1965, my father was the human resource manager for Owens, Illinois glass manufacturer, and we moved to Charlotte, and they built this big glass manufacturing plant. They built our first house. I remember that, we thought it was a mansion, really it wasn't, but it was just us, like it was brand new, and there was a front room, and we didn't get to go in the front room. Did you ever have that room in the house where the kids could never go in? Well, my mom's front room had white carpet and pristine furniture and nice end tables and beautiful flower arrangements, and we never stepped into that room. Ever stepped into that room. But, there was nothing wrong with that. So I was really involved in school, junior high and high school. I guess I kind of blossomed. I was in a Catholic school till 5th grade, which was pretty structured, and there wasn't a lot about being outgoing or doing a lot of extracurricular activities except church, which we did very well through 5th grade, and then finally we moved into the junior high, which was public, and so that's where sports came in. So I was a volleyball player, I was a basketball player, I got into cheerleading, which I did from 7th to 12th grade, played on the golf team all 4 years, in high school. Really, I think that cheerleading, you just sort of get to know everybody. You cheerlead at football games, basketball games. I got my nickname in high school playing basketball because I was a guard. And really, we didn't want to play basketball. The cheerleaders, they recruited us to play basketball because we were the athletes. And unfortunately, the other poor girls in that basketball team couldn't do anything. So the coach said, you have to play. We go, we don't want to play all this other stuff. But we played basketball, and I was the guard, and I never would shoot the ball because I had all these other teammates that were ball hogs, so I didn't care. I just dribbled down, passed them. I was the passer. But every once in a while, the coach would say, gun it. And that was my cue that I was in my zone, and I could shoot, and I would make it. So then they started calling me gunner. So when I went to college, there were, there was this, I was in like this quad of rooms, and there were 4 rooms, and there were 4 Kims. So, you just were all like this after the first week. So we all took a nickname. So of course mine stuck, so mine was Gunner all through college. And to this day, I still get mail that says Gunner Kane. And I don't even know that my name went from Kane to Dane, but it doesn't matter. That was another debacle when I got married, because it was like I only changed 1 letter. Like, what happened? Where did you go? What would you even change your name for? But I did. After I got out of college, I was unemployed. I was a school teacher with a BS degree in education, K through 12, phys ed, U.S. history minor, and I substitute taught. I went back and lived with my parents, substitute taught in the school system I grew up, coached volleyball, 2 successful seasons as a volleyball coach, umpired, refereed volleyball. And after 2 years of living with my parents, just subbing, and I couldn't find a job. Michigan was going through a real change then, and teachers, weren't needed. So I went back to school that 2 years and got a minor in business accounting. So I had that financial part of it, and I wrote every roommate, called every roommate and said, I don't care what job it is, just let me come interview whatever you got in your town. I went out of my parents' house. So I did. I went to, in Michigan, we're the mitten. And so I lived down here with my parents, and I went way up here to Alpena, Michigan, and I worked for a air charter service as his business accountant and booked all of his air charters with all of the businesses that needed to be flown everywhere. And he had a motor coach tour company, and so I planned motor coach tours for the people in northern Michigan all over the United States. So that's really where I got my business start. And then in that small town of Alpena, they built the Alpena Mall. And I was involved in the chamber and on various committees, and they came and found me, and they said, we want you to be the mall manager. I go, well, what do you do? And they go, well, you'll do a little of this and a little of that, and most of the time you just plan events, like little parties. You're really good at that. So I got into the mall business, and I learned a lot about the financial side of it, the maintenance side of it, and then really you plan events to drive traffic to the shopping center. So I worked in that little burg in Alpena, Michigan for 3 years, and then they transferred me down to metropolitan Detroit, and I went to this 1.5, 2 million square foot enclosed mall, and then I marketed and managed that and went to a team. In Alpena, I had a team of 3, and in Detroit, I had a team of 10 underneath of me. And then I managed a couple malls in Detroit, and then I met my husband. So I'm 39 when I met my husband. My husband's 30. I married a youngster. It just happens to be that I went to school with his oldest brothers and sisters. He was the youngster. He's my youngest sister's age. So as a matter of fact, my youngest sister and he dated, I think, in 7th grade. There's that going on there. But anyway, I met my husband at 39, and he was in the Lansing area, and I'm in the Detroit area. It's a 2-hour commute. So then, and he's a teacher and well-established down here. So I've got to find a job and move, which isn't the easiest thing in the world, you guys, because shopping centers and shopping malls, you're kind of limited with the number of developers and the number of openings that happen. A lot of people stay in those roles their entire career if they're good. They can. They just get better at it. So it just so happened they were building this mall like 30 minutes from Lansing, and they came to me and said, hey, we want you. And I hadn't had a resume, my whole life. People have just always, I've been very blessed. I thank God every night when I go to bed about how blessed I've been. They came to me and they said, we want you for this job, and I interviewed, but they said, we need a resume. That's our company requirement. So I paid somebody to put a resume together for me because I'd never had one. But I needed that to get this job with this developer in Howell, Michigan, where, then I got married, and my husband and I had my job. It was great. In that burg in Howell, Michigan is really where I became a Rotarian. I was very involved in the community. That was a part, because we built that shopping center there. And whenever you build a shopping center in a brand new community, they really, they think you're going to steal their downtown and all these other things. So you have to get really involved. So, I did my stint as president of the chamber. I did my stint as 10 years on the Visitors and Convention Bureau and was president. I chaired the Walk for Warmth for 12 years and raised anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000 every year in the community with my committee and the sponsors. And we had our pink campaign for Tanger, where we sold pink cards for $1, and every year we raised about $50,000 for 10 years. So there was an actual wing at the hospital named after Stanley Tanger. So I was very blessed in that career, and was even named Citizen of the Year in Howell at the annual chamber banquet. So, and I was a Rotarian, and I worked really hard in the Rotary Club there to change it. We primarily didn't have a fundraiser at that time when I became into the club, and there were a group of us knew that had to change, and when I became president, that group said, Kim, you're going to make this happen because you'll do it. So we did, and we decided to have a 100-mile bike ride, but it wasn't just a 100-mile bicycle ride. There was a 5-mile fun ride, a 25-mile ride, a 50-mile ride, 75-mile ride, and a 100-mile ride if you wanted to do it. And we had SAG vehicles that went out, and you had rest stops and tents, and we had registration, and we took out tons of liability insurance and all this other stuff to through Rotary to help us with the event in case someone got hurt. But for the first time in our club's history, you know, we didn't raise like $5,000. In our first event, we raised $35,000, and from there, it's grown every year. The first year, you guys, we did this bike event, and 2 weeks before the bike event, there were 50 people signed up. So I had to get in front of the club, and I said, don't worry, it's 2 weeks away, we're gonna have 500 riders. They're just waiting to see what the weather is. Well, sure enough, they did wait to see what the weather was, and we did have over 500 riders. So, I mean, the club really, and then from there, they really grew the event. So I can tell you that I love what I do in the shopping center industry. I'm also very blessed there. Tanger's been very good to me. I was a general manager when they hired me. Within 5 years, they offered me and started training me into a regional asset manager position where I managed 10 malls at a time. I was at the Mebane Center out in Mebane when we built it from the ground up. I hired the team. I did operationally, you know, the vending, hired all the vending, all the vendors that work for the shopping center. We did all the contracts with all of them, trained the team, did the grand opening, and you know, that is a big commitment. I was here every other week for six months when you put all that together. I've also grand opened a second center in Grand Rapids, Michigan from the ground up, and that was nice because when I lived in Michigan, then Tanger moved me into an assistant vice president role, which they knew they were grooming me to take this vice president role because we had a succession plan, and my boss retired 2 years ago. So Tanger's been very good to me. We work very hard, but it's a great company, and I can tell you my life has been blessed each and every day. So thanks for listening to Kim, Kane, Dane's story.